Today's topic is
how to paint striking, quick and easy Vespids.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to
Wave
Pan. I'm Cal.
I'm Sunny.
Today we're going to be telling you how you can paint Vespids from the Hivestorm Kill Team box set
With a striking color scheme easily.
We're going to be painting these to tabletop level.
We painted 3 levels: tabletop, character, and showcase.
First, we start with assembling your models.
So with the Vespids, we just assembled only the body and we kept the head and wings separate.
Be sure to do your best to clean up all of the mold lines and any sort of faults that you'll find on the model, because we're going to be using contrast paints and washes that will bring those faults to show.
The reason we're doing it in sub-assembly is because we would like to do different effects with 2 different types of priming.
We started with the body with a warm zenithal. Sunny, can you explain what a warm zenithal is?
Warm zenithal means that you use browns instead of black, white, and grays like your usual zenithal. This will help natural colors show better, and it helps the colors pop more, be more vibrant, and it's great for a color that we're going to be using in this color scheme, yellow.
Now, we used airbrushing to get this effect, but you can dry brush, but we really do recommend airbrushing.
Airbrushing is not the devil, guys. In fact, there are such advanced designs now that you can even have handheld compressors with your airbrushes.
And all zenithal means is shoot from above, so you do not require any advanced skills for this. Let's go into the colors we used.
Dark brown, mid brown, coffee, beige, and white.
Once this was done, we counted each of the segments of the carapace.
This is important because for this color scheme, we're going to be using alternating colors.
Black and yellow, black and yellow.
Yeah, so we're using black and yellow here if it isn't already obvious, because the Vespids, they're obviously wasps. And when we take a look at the dossier, they have a very monochromatic color scheme. But the feature of this model is those segmented parts, and we feel like that was a bit of a wasted opportunity with a monochromatic color scheme, so that's why we're doing it this way.
It is important not to fight the model you are working on. The reason why we feel that we can use an alternating color scheme here is specifically because of how the model is segmented.
Speaking of not fighting the model, it's good to look for references that are similar to your model.
In this case, we took a look at nature, and we took a look at wasps, obviously, and take a look at these great variety of wasps. Now, take a look at this one with the blue butt. That would be a great model to use if you want your models to look different.
Yeah, and this is a great way for you to mix and match different types of patternings as well and get really creative.
Speaking of mixing and matching, we noticed that a lot of creators had already done wasp-like tutorials.
So we're going to go with bees instead, and for ours, we're going to be inspired by the blue bandit bee from Australia.
But instead, we're going to take it to the head like we said before. So we're going to use the bands of the Vespid to full effect to give them a bumblebee-like look.
Speaking of not fighting the model, we'll be using the Tau Viola Sept color scheme for the weapons.
The reason for this is we can just use the zenithal and then do some highlighting with the white and we're done.
As we said, we're trying to go for quick and easy, so we want step minimize the amount of tedious work we'll have to do.
Alright, Sunny, tell us how you painted the body.
So because we're using alternating color schemes, it is super important that we count the segments so that we don't have mismatched colors when we go on to paint the other Vespids. So once you've counted the parts and know where your black and yellows should go, start off with black Templar contrast paint, because it's easier for you to have overspill of yellow over black rather than the other way around.
Sunny, you thinned your black Templar contrast paint with contrast mixed medium, didn't you?
Yes, and I did this for mostly the arms and the legs, but not the hard carapace, because I wanted that to be the most striking when you see it on the table. So I used pure black Templar contrast for the carapace, but I thinned it down for the arms and legs.
Did you thin the yellow at all, and what yellow did you use?
No thinning for the yellow, and we used Imperial Fist Yellow.
So that's the actual body done. What did you do for the weapons?
For the weapons, like we said, we used the zenithal as the base. I used Vallejo Dead White as an edge highlight over the entire weapon.
Dead white is just a pure white.
Yes, correct. For the crystal, we used Achromatic Blue contrast paint.
That's a very light blue-green.
More blue than green. And for the bolt of the weapon, we used Scale 75 Dwarven Gold for the base and then Elven Gold for the highlight.
And these are both very bright golds, aren't they?
Exactly. For all these colors, there's no reason why you can't use your favorite brands.
So just taking a look at the model now, I noticed that the underbelly is left bare.
Yes, I did, just to give a little bit of differentiation. But going back to the armor and the weapons, we actually did a oil wash, mixing an oil paint and some thinner.
You can buy oil washes from various providers. Why didn't you do that?
Because I wanted to be able to control the consistency myself. We want a really viscous flow so that it'll just do the pin washing really easily.
What is pin wash and why are you using it?
Pin washing is when you use the capillary action of a paint to do recess shading. So this will go into the crevices of a model and bring out those depths and thin lines. And we want to use an oil wash because once you have put the pin washing down and it overspills, you can just go in with a Q-tip and a thinner just to clean it up on the surface. And it's so much easier than using something like Nuln Oil.
Moving on to the wings. For the wings, we did a zenithal, but instead of starting with a black or very dark grey like we usually do, instead we started with a mid-tone grey.
The reason we started with a mid-tone grey is because we want to mimic the illusion of quote-unquote transparent wings. Ideally, the plastic should be transparent if we want to mimic the realism of a insect wing, but we did it this way to get the closest effect.
Directly after I did the mid-grey, I switched straight to white. I zenithaled the model and then I focused on the back of the wings to give that extra white feel.
I asked Cal to focus the white on the edges of the wings to create more depth and shadow going towards the center. Also, because we're doing a different priming method here, this is exactly why you need to count your segments before you paint them so that they match up when you go to glue on the wings.
This next step is completely optional, but Sunny wanted to try out some color shift with the wings.
Because I wanted to create the color shifting effect that you would see on real wings of insects. For this one, we needed to do some testing first.
So I got some spare models. Now you should do this too. You should always have spare models for testing. This doesn't necessarily need to be your expensive Warhammer models. You can simply use failed 3D prints, or you can just get some plastic army men and prime them up. Color shift works best with a gloss black paint job, but since we were using very light colors for the color shift, we wanted to test two different other options. One was pure white and the other one was a regular zenithal.
And after seeing all the effects, I thought that the zenithal worked best for this effect.
This next step is not optional. Over the wings, apply a wash, a gloss wash if you have it.
I used Nuln Oil Gloss Wash. I thinned it down with a little bit of contrast medium so that the wash isn't too overpowering, but the potholes within the wings did not come through really well, so I used just pure Nuln Oil gloss to redot some of those areas. This is so that we can regain the definition in the wings.
Alternatively, you could use a heavy wash of Soul Blight Grey.
But we would avoid Apothecary White because we have had very negative results in the past with this one.
After this, back to your optional steps. Now, you just spray on your color shift. Now, if you do spray on a color shift, you are going to have to touch up some of the grey areas.
For the carapace, I tried to match the grey that's most closest to the Zenithal Prime, so I just mixed the color with black and white, and I did the same for the backpack. After this, I mixed the contrast medium with the Black Templar contrast paint and applied this over the carapace as a sheer coat.
So why are you doing a sheer coat here?
Because if you take a look at all the black parts that's surrounding the wings, there's quite a lot of it. So to create some variation, we go with the sheer carapace instead.
Like you've done on the arms and so on.
Exactly. To keep that level of contrast, we're going to use pure Black Templar contrast over the edges of the wings.
This is where we sprayed the color shift. Did you have to do a lot of touching up?
No, not for the edges of the wings, because Black Templar contrast is pretty opaque on its own, so you didn't need to do any touch-up underneath it. We're going for quick and easy, so any steps we can remove, we will remove them. After this, using any color of choice, painting the buttons on the backpack. We're going with red and green, and then after this, you can do the oil wash to pin wash any recesses on the backpack.
For the head, we took advantage of the fact that it's segmented. You did this in stages.
Yes. First, I started out with black once again. Using Black Templar contrast, I went over the pincers and alternated the feelers.
A lot of people will call these antenna.
Right, so the next step is using Imperial Fist Yellow just to color the mouth area, but avoiding the teeth.
So you just allowed the zenithal to do the work for the teeth.
Exactly. We want to use as much of the base as possible to reduce the amount of work that we'll be doing on this model. Next step is Azurman Blue contrast paint thinned down with contrast medium, and apply this all over the upper half of the head and the remaining parts of the antenna. Once that's dry, apply Achromatic Blue over the center of the face.
And why are you applying this when we said that we want to avoid extra steps?
So this will create a little bit of variation in the tone of blue so it doesn't look so flat.
So I actually gave you a trick for this one. We've got some very piercing red eyes. How did we achieve that effect?
For this we actually used a metallic base. We used Scale 75 heavy metal paint to base the eyes and then go over it with Blood for the Blood God from Citadel.
Do we need to use specifically Scale 75 heavy metal?
No, you can use any bright steel or silver for this. And this will actually create that shimmering insect-like eye effect.
Alternatively, the other thing that you could use is the other 3 gemstone effects,
such as Waystone Green, Spirit Stone Red, and Soulstone Blue.
Now, if you really want to go out of your way, you can just do a standard gemstone paint job, but that's 6 per model. That's going to take a lot of time.
And you probably have a pot of Blood for the Blood God hanging around somewhere. So Cal, I got you to do the basing.
Yep, so first off, I've got 3 little pots here. In these pots, I've got Kalidor's Magic Mud or Kalidor's Cream.
Oh, stop it.
And then we've got some rubble, which I got from Zavra's workshop.
Zabavka workshop, yeah.
And I just pre-painted these just a neutral grey for the stone and then just metal for the rebar.
That sounds easy enough.
Also got the car wheels from him and pre-painted them as well. I just used some disposable tools like paddle pop sticks and coffee stick stirrers to apply the Kalidor's cream, as well as a busted brush.
But why did you want a paintbrush at all?
Okay, so for some of the areas with those bases, there's areas of just general rubble. For example, dirt, that sort of thing. And I just paint it over that so that it blends in with the rest of the dirt.
Right, okay, that makes sense.
So once I've applied this Kalidor's cream, then I just put those bits of rubble or bits of wheel into that mud right there. And then I just let it dry.
So how did you finish it off with this realistic rubble look?
So I just got some pigment sticks and I crushed them up. I've already done this before. So this is our grey pigment powder mixture. Obviously, it's not just one colour of grey, but a few different ones.
And how do we apply it?
So I've got a makeup brush in here with it, and all I did was I heaped it onto the makeup brush, swirled it all over, made sure that I got great big heaps of it and put it on to make it look like real rubble dust.
It looks great, but Cal, wouldn't the dust just fall over everywhere?
Well, we can do 2 things to avoid that. We can either spray it with isopropyl alcohol, which will almost instantly evaporate, or we could put on some light PVA mixture. So this is usually mixed with isopropyl alcohol, water, and PVA.
Oh, interesting.
After this, I cleaned the edges of the bases with just a damp cloth, or some of the times I used a Q-tip.
And now we're done?
Yep, we're done.
And there you have it, guys. Quick, easy, and striking Vespids.
Please enjoy this miniature showcase, and after the break, we're going to cover the color psychology of these guys for you.
We very much hope that you enjoyed our content, and if you'd like us to do more of this and would like to support us, please consider joining us as a member here on YouTube or on Ko-Fi.
Thank you so much for joining us, and as always, keep those brushes wet. Bye-bye.
Okay, Cal, let's talk a little bit about the color scheme and the color psychology of these models.
Alright, first off, the first thing that we've got to take a look at is the color scheme. Now, the color scheme is an adjacent complementary color scheme.
because the only two true colors here are yellow and blue. But Cal, couldn't we also consider the bit of red in the eyes?
Yes, we could. So we could call it a trichromatic color scheme.
Why is it trichromatic instead of split complementary?
The reason why it's trichromatic instead of split complementary is because the colors are all primary colors in a nice, neat, equilateral triangle. They're all primary colors.
That's right. Now let's talk about the color psychology.
So when talking about color psychology instead of color harmonies, we will consider all of the colors used. This includes shades, like black and white. Sunny, can you tell us a bit about the majority color, which is yellow?
Yellow is the color of energy, enthusiasm, and clarity, and it's also a very positive color. And when you pair it with black, particularly in this banding pattern, it is the symbol of industry. Black and yellow is usually associated with insects like wasps and bees, and that's also why we associate these sorts of traits, industriousness, drone-like behavior, with this color scheme. It's also really hostile, which is why we use this pattern and color scheme in hazard stripes.
So, Sunny, why does this scheme seem more friendly than the other schemes that we've seen?
Because of the large banding, it actually looks a little bit more friendly as compared to some of the angular patterns that you will find on wasps. So it feels a little bit more on the friendly side. But it wouldn't be 40K if we didn't bring some level of hostility into this design. So when we look at the blue for the head, it actually shows that they're really calm, cool, and collected. So these are a type of people who are not easily fazed by threats. And when you pair it with the yellow, it shows a sense of cruelty and calculative behavior.
But what about those blood red eyes?
Color placement is just as important as the color choice because it shows certain psychological behaviors and symbolism. That is why we chose blue for the head and not put blue in the bum like with our reference picture. But with the red eyes, it shows a sense of aggression, power, and anger.
This stark sort of white isn't a colour that we usually see in nature, so it feels quite alien to these aliens. Along with the gold, it gives this feeling of prestige and power. They are the new beginning. They are the start of everything. They are the pinnacle of new technology.
The white also contrasts really well with that cream underbelly and the rest of the color scheme, which shows that contrast of kind between the natural and unnatural. When it comes to the buttons, the red and green are not only just complementary colors, they also signify like an on and off button,
which will allow you to unconsciously connect with this sci-fi universe. You feel that this has a purpose. You feel that you might understand some piece of this technology. Finally, with the rubble, we chose very neutral colors, which would not compete with our very striking color scheme.
Especially with the kill zone that they represent, it's just some place that is industrial, which also matches the theme of the industrial Vespids.
And as we said, we didn't want to fight the sculpt. Now, if I had have just left the brown earth there, it would have fought with the rest of the model. This is the other reason why we dusted it so heavily.
This not only allows the model to shine, it also adds that aspect of realism.
And that's it for the color psychology. If you want to see more content like this,
become a member, like and share this video. These videos take a long time to produce, so please help us by showing your support. And as always,
keep those brushes wet. Bye-bye.